Hello BookTube, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth, and for this video I'd like to do my part 2 November wrap-up, and this will be my wrap-up for Nonfiction November. Nonfiction November is hosted by Olive from A Book Olive and Gemma from Nonfic Books, and there were 4 challenges this year. They were home, substance, love, and scholarship, and I can almost fit all of my books for Nonfiction November into one or the other of those categories. There were a couple that were, you know, if I really forced it, I could fit them into something, but I'm going to just show you what I read for each category, and then there's maybe 3 at the end that are nonfiction that are not obvious fits into any of the categories. But for Nonfiction November, I read 12 books, and I didn't finish 2 of them until the first week of December. And so I'm going to go ahead and include those in this wrap-up because I was reading them for Nonfiction November. So I did finish 10 nonfiction books in the month of November. And then for the whole month of November, I finished 18 books. And then I had 5 books that I started that I finished in the first week of December. And as I said, 2 of those were nonfiction. So in my part 1 November wrap-up, I talked about all the fiction books that I read in the month. So here we go. There were 2 ebooks, and I don't really have a picture of the first one. It really just had words on the cover, but it was a summary and analysis of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I found it on Hoopla as an ebook, and because I had buddy read this with Christelle from Vintage Christelle and Emily from Emily Sears, we discussed it and everything, and I thought it would be fun to go ahead and just read the summary and the analysis. It was very short, I think like 25 pages, and just get a feel for what some of the other thoughts were on it, and also get a little bit of the background on it. And now I'm going to count that book with scholarship because it was a book analysis of this book. But then I had a couple of other heavier books that I would consider for scholarship. And I will tell you, this is the order I'm going to show you are not the order that I read them in. So I will show them to you according to category. So the other 2 scholarship books, I had Siblings of Children with Autism by Sandra L. Harris and Beth A. Glasberg. I was interested in this because I do have a daughter with autism, and I do have a daughter who's typical, and I just was curious about what they had to say on the subject. And this very easily fits in the scholarship category because it brought to light a lot of different studies and information that they have found from different studies and different interviews with families of kids with autism and siblings who, were typical. So I thought it was really good. I picked out a few things that I will glean from it in the way of talking to my typical daughter a little bit and just kind of counseling with her a little and maybe questioning her about some of her feelings, because there were some issues that were of concern to parents and the siblings of kids with autism that I hadn't really thought about. And so, over the next few months, I will be talking to Katie a little bit about her feelings on these issues, and also just being very aware of her feelings about the future and whether she's worried or concerned about having kids herself with autism, or how much she's going to have to take care of her sister when we're gone, and things like that. So those are some issues that I'll be discussing with her as time progresses. So it was very interesting. It was a slow read. I couldn't digest a whole lot at one time. I pretty much just chinked away at it during the month. And then another one that I would consider scholarship, because this also included studies and and things regarding introverts and extroverts. This is written from an introvert perspective. My husband is an introvert. I've always considered myself an extrovert, but after reading this, I realized that I do have some introvert tendencies. So maybe in my old age, I am getting a little more balanced. I don't know. But it was very interesting. I don't think I could have sat down and just read it in print. I'm glad I was able to get the audio. The book is called Quiet by Susan Cain. Sorry, I almost forgot to tell you the title. The subtitle is The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking. So I thought it was very interesting, but it was a little dry at times. But there were some very very good points that were brought up. And one thing I think that was very important is that I think a lot of people, maybe extroverts, think that being an introvert is a negative thing. And there were some points brought up here that were very eye-opening about the strengths of an introvert, and maybe their thinking process and their planning process, and how they know their stuff. So it's just they're going to present it to you in a different manner than an extrovert. So that was just one of the issues. It's very interesting reading. And so then the next category I'll talk about is substance. And I have one book that I definitely would put in the substance category, and this is 1000 Gifts by Ann Voskamp. This was really a fantastic book. Now, I will say, I kind of thought it went off the deep end just a little bit in the end, because some of the analogies that she used, I thought were just a little bizarre, and you'd have to read it to understand what I'm talking about. But overall, most of the book I thought was fantastic. She is a woman who experienced a major tragedy when she was very young. She watched her sister get hit by a car and die, and so she kind of lived her whole life up to this point just kind of in a fog of depression. And so she started just kind of getting closer to God, and feeling like she needed to be more thankful, and to well, I don't know, I'm maybe not explaining it just right. Basically, she started making a list of 1,000 things that she's thankful for. And of course, once she got to 1,000, she kept on going. But her main goal was to write 1,000 things that she was thankful for. And a few of them are in here, and they are just things that a lot of us would take for granted. Most of us probably do take them for granted. And they're very specific, like the sunlight coming in beams and onto the chair, and I don't know, that's not one exactly, but that's kind of the idea. Just wonderful things. Daughter giggling over marshmallows. I mean, that's just things like that, though, that we take for granted, that are just wonderful things. And she talked about her walk with God, and how as she got closer with God, as she became more thankful. And it's just really a fantastic book. It was given to me by a friend of mine who is a retired missionary, and she even put a little post-it note, which I'm now using as a place marker, but her little note said, "This is so good." Well, when she first gave it to me, I read a chapter, and of course that was the chapter about her seeing her sister killed and all of that, and I thought, oh, this is going to be really depressing. I can't read this. And I didn't intend to ever put it down completely, but I did. This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I put it down and I didn't pick it back up. And then I think I saw, maybe it was Felicia from Little Prairie Library. I believe this is a book that she read and reviewed. It's been a couple years ago now, and even if it was a different book, it made me think of this book. And so it's kind of been on my radar that I needed to pick it back up, and I needed to finish it. And so I just started over, read the whole thing again, and I thought it was fantastic. It really is a good book, and a very good lesson in thankfulness, and it was the perfect book to read at Thanksgiving time. Okay, so then I have one book that I am considering for the love category, and especially because it has love in the title. The Five Love Languages of Teenagers by Gary Chapman. This is a companion book to the original book, The Five Love Languages, which is mostly written for couples in understanding each other's love language. This one is, of course, in helping to understand your teen and their love languages. You don't really need to have read the first book to understand this one, because he does go through and explain the love languages again. But I think it's helpful. I think the basic book gives you a good base for the five love languages theory. But of course, there's one for children. There's also one which talks about how we use our love languages to worship God, and there may even be others than that. But I thought it was great, and it did give me a few ideas for dealing with my kids as they're teens. Their love languages haven't changed, but the way that they display their love languages and the way that they feel it is different as they, are teens now. So I did find some helpful advice in here, and I thought it was great. I definitely recommend reading anything about the five love languages. I think it's just a fantastic concept. So wonderful. And if you've never read it, it's based on the theory that there are five love languages, and each of us speak more fluently in one of those. We can learn to speak in all five love languages, but we tend to give and receive love in our main love language. They are gifts, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and words of affirmation. So my love language is words of affirmation, which is why I love your comments so much, and I crave them, and I want to comment back to you and answer every comment, because that is how I feel love. And so thank you for those of you who comment to me. So that was my book for love. And then I have two for family. I read a more of a comedic book, but this is Couplehood by Paul Reiser. I thought this was hilarious. It's a little bit dated. This book has been around a while, but really it's very relevant for couples at any time. There's just a few references to various technologies that, are from the 90s and 80s, or whenever this was written. I think this is from the 90s, but I'm not absolutely certain. Yes, 1994, 95. So this was a lot of fun, and I could hear Paul Reiser saying these things. He's just a fun comedian. I remember watching him on Mad About You, and now he's on Stranger Things, which I just saw him. He looks so different now, and I was watching Stranger Things with Katie. I haven't watched it from the beginning, but I kind of come in and out on episodes I know I need to watch from the beginning. And I saw him, and I thought, I think that's Paul Reiser. I had to go double check on IMDb, and it is him. So this was a lot of fun. And then a little heavier book, but still in the family category, is The Excellent Wife, A Biblical Perspective by Martha Peace. This was very biblical. I encourage you to read my Goodreads review of this. I don't think this book is for everybody. It can be a little hard to swallow, I think, even for born-again Christians. It is what some people would consider very old-fashioned. I, however, would have to agree with just about all of it, all of her ideas. Am I doing all of these things? No. I was alerted to a couple of things that I could probably improve on. There was just one little thing that she brought out that you should not do, and it relates to something that is taught against in the Bible, and some people would probably associate the two things together, but I think that they are separate things, and I'm not going to go into what it is because it's a personal thing. But that one little thing, I thought, you know what? I think right there, that little point, she's letting her own opinions come into play, because I don't think that specific thing is taught against biblically. I could be wrong, but anyway, it of course is her opinion, but almost everything is backed up biblically, which is very important when you are making these kind of assertions and giving this kind of information. But again, it would be very hard to swallow for a lot of people if you're not a Bible believing Christian. So it was very good. It was given to me again by a friend, a different friend from the other book. Someone gave this to me when, I think, right after we got married, and I never read it. And we've been married 19 years. So I am glad that I read it, and I am going to be, and I already have been, working on a couple of the issues that I realized that I was doing that I shouldn't be, or things I should be doing that I wasn't, things like that. So anyway, The Excellent Wife. Okay, then a couple of others, 3 others that are nonfiction that don't really fit into any of the categories. I listened to on audio Mennonite in a Little Black Dress by Rhoda Jansen. This is a memoir. There were some laugh out loud funny times. There were some really crude things that it's a bad language, so it was kind of a mix, but I am glad that I read it. I can definitely see the humor in some of it. I had a feeling though that I don't know, I felt like she disrespected her parents' religious views and their faith a little more than she should. I think you still need to have respect and honor your parents, whether you believe exactly what they believe or not. And so that bothered me just a little bit. But her mother is a real character, and I did enjoy some of the parts where she was relating some things that her mother said and did, and I thought that was cute. Then Cat Castles by Karen Oliver. This is a little how-to book I got from the Bookmobile that gives instructions on how to make some cat habitats and some sleeping places and things like that. I said that I was going to try to make one, and I haven't yet, and I've got to take this back to the library this week, so I'll probably get it again, or maybe I will just write down the instructions, maybe copy a page if that's legal. I don't know if that's legal or not. I don't know. There is a cute one. This is the one I think I'd like to make. This little pyramid is cute. So I did read this and the instructions and got some fun ideas. And this is a book that I was going to read in October. I didn't get around to it, so I did listen to it in November. 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hempf. And I didn't even know till I started it that it is nonfiction. It is epistolary. They are actual letters that were written between Miss Hempf and Frank Dowell, who was from a bookstore that was at 84 Charing Cross Road in the UK. I guess, is it London? I think it's London. And she is from the United States. So the letters take place over a 20-year time period, and it's just really delightful. I enjoyed this so much, and it's just a little tiny book. I definitely recommend reading it. And then there was one other book on my Kindle. In fact, it is it was the very last one I finished. I didn't finish it till just a couple of days ago. I was going to show it to you on my Kindle. It's a memoir, and it is by Janice J. Richardson, called The Making of a Funeral Director. And I thought it was really good. It was tough at times. That would be a tough job, to be a funeral director. I can't even imagine. And one thing I didn't realize is that it's the funeral home people are the ones who go and pick up bodies, like at murder scenes and whatever. It is not the coroner. I thought that the coroner picked up, oh dear. There we go. Can you see it? The Making of a Funeral Director, Janice J. Richardson. Now, maybe it's different in the United States. She's writing from a Canadian perspective. She's Canadian. And I always thought that it was people from the, maybe the police or the investigative team or the forensics people, but they just come in and investigate. According to this, it's the people from the funeral home who go in then once the investigation is done and pick up bodies and take them to either the morgue, or they may deliver them to the coroner for autopsy and then take them to the funeral home or take them straight to the funeral home if it doesn't need to be, investigated or whatever. So I don't know. It was just very interesting, and she was very respectful and talked about the very intense training, a lot of medical type training that they have to go through, chemistry. There's just so much involved that I had not even thought about, and it was just very interesting. Now, I've had some experience, in dealing with funeral home staff and things. I didn't have very much involvement when my father passed away because I was only 21, and so my mother took care of everything. But when my mother passed away in 2008, my brother and sister and I all had very close dealings with the funeral home, and I just have a much higher respect for what they do. And I think I've always had a respect for what they do, but it's elevated now that I have read her book. So if you're interested at all in just learning what that's about, I definitely recommend reading it. Now, I think it's self-published. There are some typos. It could do with a little bit of editing, but that all can be overlooked just to get the information, and I definitely recommend it. So that's it for Nonfiction November. That is my wrap up. I think, like I said, I read 12 books and 12 nonfiction books. 2 I didn't finish until this week, and overall finished 18 books plus 5 in the next week, for a total of, what is that, 20? I don't know. What is that? I can't do math in my head. I know, that's ridiculous. Anyway, I finished a lot of books, and I finished 18 and started a few more. And now they're all done. So now I'm on to my December books. I hope that you will join me for my book Advent unwrappings. If you haven't yet, I have been unwrapping a book a day, and several of those I have already finished. Then I'm also co-hosting a Christmas Hope read-along with the Donna Van Leer Christmas Hope series. I'm hosting that with Sarah from Not Just Romance Novels. So anyway, join in on those things if you haven't already. I also had 2 books laying here, 2 nonfiction books. My husband read these in November. He wasn't really participating in Nonfiction November, but I had picked these up at the bookmobile, and he read both of them. This one I think he enjoyed more than this one. He said this was really good. It's called The Underdogs by Melissa Fay Green. It is about service dogs. And this one, he said, it's okay. This is called How a House Built a Family by Kara Brookins. Actually, it's called Rise, and the subtitle is How a House Built a Family. So those are my husband's contribution to Nonfiction November. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.